Riot is adding jungle timers to the game, and people have raised hell about it. Players are bitching on Reddit as to how this would dumb the game down, remove a skill-based factor from high-level players, and other nonsense. Some of them do argue good points though, so I do have to give them credit for that, but a lot of people arguing about this are deluded and miss one of the most important things about timers. Jungle timers are meaningless if you do not know how to actually take advantage of them. Taking down jungle timers takes absolutely no skill, and it mostly just means you're not lazy. What's so difficult about adding a number to the time you killed a monster camp, or did an objective with your team, or lost it to the enemy team? Absolutely nothing. What truly is skillful and arduous is knowing how to use these jungle timers, knowing how to group for a dragon or baron, how to approach it, how to prepare for it is a whole lot different than just, knowing the damn timers. Having the timers of the enemy buffs is worthless unless you actually know how to invade without being spotted, or how to prepare to steal it, or to ambush enemy jungler, or how to respond to knowing where the enemy jungler is exactly in the map, or predict where he would be according to the spawn timer of a camp. Suddenly, having the timers available will not make players experts. The players who are not experienced with timers will not all of a sudden become Dragon Slayers or Invasion Masters. Hell, the timers are not even going to guarantee your team will take advantage of them. Even if you have the timers down, it does not mean your mid laner will budge to fight for Dragon. It does not mean your top laner will save their teleport. It does not mean bottom lane will not go back at some random point. And it doesn't mean the jungler will actually burn their smite on a small wraith before the dragon spawns. Careless, bad, or stupid players will still exist, and having jungle timers will not suddenly make them better. As my friend and fellow jungler Foxshop said, if the only difference between you and a player you consider inferior is timers, you got a whole lot of other problems. This point is by far one of the strongest against those arguing against implementing jungle timers. Do you feel the act of being able to jot down some jungle timers makes you so much better that losing this advantage will be your downfall? If so, then that's pretty dumb. If you play in a division where taking jungle timers is so common, both teams always have someone jotting them down, then why does it matter that the timers are given automatically to you and your opponent? If you always keep timers, yet you're constantly facing opponents who do not, and in fact, you are in lower division than some of them, does simply knowing jungle timers make a massive difference? Once again, if you play in a division where timers are so common, why do you care that a division much lower than you that normally does not take timers automatically has them now? If suddenly some of these players who never took timers become much better because they start adapting their play because they have the timers now, were they really ever bad players to begin with? The biggest gripe I have with this group of naysayers is that it always happens. In every instance of Riot adding more clarity to the game, there has always been a group of people, sometimes small and sometimes large, who cried about those changes. When smart pings were added, some players thought that they would make the game too easy. When aggro indicators for towers and minions were added, some players were upset. When a tower aggro sound was added, there was yet another group of people who were pissed at that. Some players hated the idea of smart cast, saying it would be too easy to cast combos now, and some players hated the idea of new missile displays, which would make skill shots way too easy. There were even camps of people who cried about Riot adding clarity to champion abilities, such as range indicators, and buffs and debuffs becoming more noticeable. Yes, they technically make the game easier, but the changes did not exactly detract from the game. If some of these changes improve the player base, then the entire game has improved as a result, as a higher quality of games could now be expected. At worst, if the jungle changes don't actually end up being good for the game, Riot can just pull them back. And if it does improve the game, then that's a good thing for the player base. If adding the jungle timers serves to improve the player base, then that is a good thing. Why would anyone be against helping the player base improve? Players constantly bitch about players being so terrible, yet they're against the addition of tools that would help players actually become better. It makes the game a tad easier, sure, but it does not win the game for the player. The jungle timers will not teleport them to the dragon, it will not plant them at the enemy blue, it will not blow up the enemy nexus. The player will still have to learn how to take advantage of this new tool. Those players that fail will not rise, or those that will use all the tools given to them will rise. As it was already said, if not having the timers down is all that kept these players from being gods, then were they ever really that terrible of players? Remember, true skill does not come from writing a bunch of numbers. It comes from knowing what to do with them.